Greetings and welcome to part 2 of my day count series. In this video, I'm going to show you a bunch of the day counts and what they are used for. I'm praying that you understand what I am showing you here today. The first thing I want to talk about are the two first day counts that I found. The first day count I found was Daniel 12:11. Daniel 12:11 ties the abomination of desolation directly to the 1,290 days. So if we can find the abomination of desolation, we have a starting point. Well, the abomination of desolation happens at this sign. I show you that in this video, the abomination of desolation video. Now, if Daniel 12:11 is true, then it can only be 1,230 days back to the start of the tribulation. It's not 1,260. This verse disproves that. Daniel 9:27 says it's a 7-year period. If we're going to have 7 years of days, it's got to be 1,230 to the start, because that, in addition to 1,290, equals the 7 years. The second number I found was the 1,335 days. It was my theory at that time that this being the longest day should line up with the last sign, which would be the sign of the Son of Man. The problem with this was that they did not line up. They were approximately 97 days apart, and that's because we had not taken into consideration Matthew 24:22, the shortened days. Now I talk about that in this video. In that video I tell you it's speculation that I believe the 1,335 days get shortened to bring it into alignment with this sign. It's not speculation anymore. I'm going to show you in this video how that is true. Now the 1,335 days are counted from this sign, and that winds up on May 18th in 2021, which just happens to be Pentecost. Now to get May 18th to line back up with February 11th, we have to take off 7 hours off each day. Every day is now going to be a 17-hour day, and I discuss how that happens in this video. What causes that shortening of the days is the seventh angel's bowl. Remember this big earthquake like none ever had been on the earth. Now I want to remind you again, that was speculation at that time. But let's go find some confirmation that this 7-hour shorter day, a 17-hour day, is actually what is going on. Now if you remember, back in my The End video, I found this brand new sign, and I told you that 1,290 days counted to it, but I did not tell you how it counted to it. It counts the same exact way that the 1335 days does, due to the 17-hour days, and it gets shortened from April 6th, 83 days, back and lines up exactly on January 13th, 2021. Now let's talk about this shortened day. If it were 6.5 hours or less, these would not line up. If it were 7.5 hours or more, they would not line up. It has to be exactly 7 hours. And not only that, it has to be exactly from this day. If we start moving this day around, it changes the end days 7 hours each day we move. So it has to be exactly 7 hours shorter on the day, and it has to be from this day to get both of these day counts to line up with this sign and line up with this sign. Okay, let's look at this from a different point of view now. Let's look at from our point of view where we do not see this earthquake out in the future. Is there any other way to tell whether this sign is really the end of the tribulation and this sign is really the sign of the Son of Man? I mean, we're really just guessing with this earthquake, right? What if we could take 2 of those day counts right out of the Bible, and one would go from this sign right out to this sign without having to shorten it, and another would go from this sign right out to this sign without having to shorten it through this earthquake? Do you think that might be possible? Revelation 13:5 tells us about 42 months. If we count from this sign 42 months, it winds up exactly on this day in 2021. If we take Daniel 12:7 and Revelation 12:14's time, times, and half a time, that is the exact count from this sign to this sign. Now, I had told you in this video that all the numbers that I'm going to show you today are all different. I don't believe that's right anymore. I believe I made a mistake. I believe the time, times, and half a time from Daniel and Revelation tie together at this point so that the two books tie together. We get some day counts out of Daniel and some out of Revelation. And I believe these two go together at this one point, and only this one is going to tie together. Now, I want to point out that time, times, and half a time is a different way of counting than with 42 months or with any of the precise day counts. I talk about that in part 1 of that video, day counts. Now, the 42 months in both places winds up dead on to the day. All of the precise day counts, the 1,290, the 1,335, the 1,260, they're all precisely to the day. But this one is off by 2 days. But that's exactly what God said. 3.5 years. Here's all the information together, and I want you to notice what God is showing us here. He's showing us the future from 2 different perspectives. God is showing us from our perspective now 2 different counts. He shows us a count from this sign to this sign, and from this sign to this sign. And we see it without the earthquake involved. But then he also shows us the perspective of what happens with the earthquake out there that shortens the days. He gives us a day count from this sign to this sign that gets shortened 97 days and brings it back into alignment, and he does the same thing from this sign to this sign. He shows us that day count, it gets shortened and brings it back into alignment with this day. Okay, so there's 5 of your day counts. There's 2 time, times, and a half a time, the 1335, the 1290, and the 42 months. Now, that's some pretty good confirmation that I'm on the right track, but I know there's some skeptics out there, so let's do 2 more of the day count verses. Revelation 11 verses 2 and 3. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These 2 verses are right next to each other in Revelation 11. I believe when they play out, they'll be right next to each other and complement each other. These 2 verses are also 1 chapter before Revelation 12. That means this should happen before Revelation 12, but this is still part of the 6th trumpet and 2nd woe, which means it should not happen before this. Exactly 1 month before the Revelation 12 sign, we have a total solar eclipse on August 21st, 2017. If we count 42 months, the Revelation 11:2, that brings us dead on to December 14th, this solar eclipse. I want you to notice something about this solar eclipse. I want you to notice Mercury, the messenger, and Mars, war. Here's the messenger and war. Could this have something to do with the 2 witnesses? Revelation 11 verses 5 and 6. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth, and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of the prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. These 2 messengers are bringing war to the earth. They have the power to shut heaven so that it doesn't rain. They have the power over the waters to turn into blood. They're going to be causing plagues, and man will be trying to kill them. I believe that Mercury and Mars represent the 2 witnesses, and at this solar eclipse, it's the announcement that they're on their way. So at this total solar eclipse, that's when the city is taken by the Gentiles. They get exactly 42 months to the day to December 14th, 2020, and Matthew 24:29 immediately after the tribulation of those days. Less than 1 month after this total solar eclipse on August 21st, on September 16th, Mercury and Mars have an extremely close conjunction. Mercury is just going to wash out Mars, the messenger and war. If we count 1,260 days from this conjunction, from Revelation 11:3, that comes up to February 27th in 2021. But we need to shorten this number according to that same 17-hour day. And when we do that, that takes 74 days off that count, and it comes up dead on December 14th in 2020. These two verses work just like the previous verses that we talked about, in that one of them goes directly to the sign and the other one gets shortened to get to the sign. Now, 2 days after September 16th, the moon comes by and it stamps right in between Mercury and Mars on the 18th. That's confirmation that they are here. Now for some extra confirmation that this is where the two witnesses show up. On December 14th, 6 hours before this eclipse, the moon completely eclipses Mercury. Now this is just a guess, but I think this is when the two witnesses are killed. That's exactly 1,260 days after they show up. Here is everything we've talked about up to this point. I've tried to make it as easy to understand as possible, and I want you to notice the confirmation that we have in all of these verses. These verses pair up, and one of the verses we see from the point of view without an earthquake, and the other we see with the earthquake. This earthquake that shortens the days brings May 18th back 97 days and aligns it with this sign. It brings April 6th back 83 days and aligns it with this sign. It brings February 27th back 74 days and aligns it with this sign. I could not make this up if I wanted to. This is just how amazing God is. Each of these verses has a verse that confirms it. I believe this number also needs a verse that confirms it. I believe that to be Daniel 7:25, time times, and a dividing of time. Daniel 7:25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. I think some people decide that this goes to the second half, but I don't think so. In the second half, the Antichrist is going to be setting himself up as God, not talking against God. He's also going to be killing the saints, not wearing out the saints. And the time times and a dividing of time seems to fit with the 1,230. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the 10 numbers out of the Bible that I know about that concern the end times. But I want you to notice that it isn't really about the day counts. It's about the signs. The day counts are just to count from sign to sign. We count from this sign through the day count to this sign. We count from this sign through the day counts to this sign. We count from this sign through the day counts to this sign. We count from this sign through the day counts to this sign. And we count from this sign to this sign and this sign to this sign. The day counts that God gives us in the Bible are just to count between the signs. The signs are the key. Daniel 12, verses 9 through 12. Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335 days. The 1,290 days was the first one that I figured out. The 1,335 days was the second one that I figured out. The words are now open, and this book is unsealed because it's the time of the end. And here is the proof. We've got signs talked about right out of the Bible. We've got the day counts that we know now what they're for. They count between the signs, and all of those are right out of your Bible. What are you going to do with this information?